The other day, I was driving in my car and fantasizing about finding a regular job. And you might think this sounds crazy. It will be like, but Kat, you've been self-employed for almost 10 years. In fact, it will be exactly 10 years this coming April. And what led me to thinking such crazy thoughts, you might ask? Well, the thing is, if you're anything like me, over the past few years, it's been really tough being a creator. We're competing with a lot of noise, a lot of technology, changing algorithms, and I don't know about you, but it feels like you have to do a crazy dance or performance, and all the content that we spend hours creating, it just takes seconds for someone to swipe away and disregard hours of studio time or hours of writing or singing or whatever it is that you do. Well, this video is not a complaint about creating content, although I definitely have my share. In fact, I recently wrote a Substack and I titled it Breaking Up with a Content Monster, and you can check it out by going to the show notes. And even though I do acknowledge the burnout, the frustration, and the unhelpful sort of pattern that we've all fallen into when it comes to sharing our work online, content creation, and growing our audiences, I also wanted to write about why we started doing it in the first place. And for me, it was when I was in my early 20s, after I graduated from art school. I really wanted to put my art out there. I wanted to connect with other artists, with curators, galleries, of course, and grow my career, and of course, make sales. And in the beginning, it was really challenging, but when Instagram came about around 2014, things started to change for me, and I'm so forever grateful to this platform. However, as you may know, in this day and age, there are so many changes that occurred, from AI to, once again, the algorithms and all these crazy tech companies making such dramatic shifts that it's really tough to keep up. So let's take a collective breath together. And here is some good news. And the good news actually came from me almost quitting this whole business I spent a decade building up and really realizing why I'm doing this in the first place. And as by luck, the universe always finds me when I'm at my lowest moments. I happen to intuitively turn on Marie Forleo's podcast, and love Marie. I'm one of her students. B School is amazing if you ever have a chance to take that course. But Marie also shares tons of free, valuable content on her platform. Shout out to Marie. And this episode was about content ideas. And at first, I literally had like a gag reflex where I couldn't think of the word content anymore. I'm like, okay, if you're telling me to record one more video or one more podcast episode or one more reel or TikTok, I just couldn't do it anymore. But Marie, the genius that she is, really brought me back to the place that I needed to be at, and that is a place of service. So what I'm realizing now, and I think this happens with every big bubble, with AI, we see a lot of content now, a lot of junk, right? They call it AI slop. You see really quickly manufactured videos of celebrities that are fake, AI generated. You see artwork that's done in 3 seconds or 3 prompts. And not to discredit AI artists who are using it creatively, I've seen some amazing things done. Even though I personally don't use AI to create my art, I can respect that it takes intelligence, skills, and creativity to be able to communicate with these machines. But that's not what this episode is about. And that's a conversation for another day, whether you agree with it or not. There are a lot of controversial and unsavory facts about AI, right? Not to mention the environmental impact, but more on that hopefully another day with someone who's really knowledgeable. Not my place to talk about this at this time of my life or business. Back to us showing up. The whole point of me bringing up AI was that I realized that because of all the crazy amounts of junk essentially that we're bombarded with, we are craving each other's work. There is nothing that brings me more joy than an artist or a creator or a writer or a speaker who's just like in their car or laying on their couch and in the most unflattering angles, which is still, I'm not gonna lie, it's still hard for me to get used to this because I come from a generation where everything was very curated and polished. Our grids were perfectly organized. And the thing is that I'm also drawn to that raw, imperfect human touch. I love seeing people's sketchbooks. I personally love the messy studio scenes. And whenever I see an artist who has like something to say and they just stop painting and record it as if they just had this light bulb moment they need to share with the world. One of the artists, I'm gonna link his Instagram in the show notes as well. He just pops in all the time in his studio clothes, and he's an older gentleman, and he shares really profound wisdom about being an artist. And I'm sure it's curated to some degree, everything is, but my point is I feel very drawn to those types of videos. And I'm sure it doesn't take a huge team of videographers and editors to post these reels, but they're so impactful to me. And so I think what's happening is that we're shifting away from this performance economy when it comes to content creation. And the performances, what I mean by that is super highly edited reels, overly dramatic, painting videos of someone like doing backflips and dances. And shout out to those people who are actually enjoying that, not to poo-poo on anyone at all, but just to say that not everyone has the energy or the ability to do that, right? Because some of us are caretakers or balancing jobs. And when content creation becomes a whole full-time job, it's really discouraging. And even though I have a decent audience, I'm not any crazy influencer by any means, but I do my best to show up with my podcast. That's probably my best performing social media, if you call it that, or piece of content, a place where I share content. Our big Instagram is Create Magazine, which has over 200K. And so I have done well. It's taking me years. There were moments where my audience grew quickly and times where it might have petered out a little bit. And the ebbs and flows of being a business owner in general are very, very real. But I think as we are navigating this new era of technology, AI, and AI bubbles, they might burst soon. I think all of us are going to want the handmade, the imperfect, the awkward, right? I'm not someone who considers myself a public speaker. I've practiced a lot, so hopefully I'm doing a good job. But at the end of the day, my heart is just to share the journey, to encourage you, because it's really sad for me when my friends fall off and stop making art or stop showing up. I had a dear friend who's also a mentor essentially disappear for the past year from my life. And she was someone who's really important to me. And part of it, I believe, and I don't know the whole story, but came from the content burnout and having to perform and having to show up all the time. So we know all of this. We can collectively agree that this is really the challenging part of being an artist today. So what do we do about it, right? How do we tackle showing up online? How do we prevent ourselves from fraying at the edges and taking our precious time away from our families, our loved ones, our friends, and our studio practice, the thing that we want to do the most? And how do we continue to grow without completely destroying our mental health and inner peace, right? So Marie Forleo, who I shared earlier, has this amazing episode about content. I'm going to link it as well for you to check out. But Marie essentially reminded me that content is a form of service, because I know sometimes I'm having a really bad day and I'm scrolling and I see a beautiful painting and it reminds me how much I love painting and how I want to get back to the studio. Or another leader or business owner shows up and talks about how they had a really tough year, but they overcame, and they're so glad they didn't give up, right? And so those are very basic and generic examples, but you have to agree that there is content that you come across that seems to just find you at the right place at the right time. And that, my friends, is being of service. And being of service doesn't always mean that we're coaching or teaching or educating people or showing them how to do something. That's just one way of serving. For me, sometimes just seeing someone in the studio making art is a reminder that there's still wholesome, beautiful things going on. And they're motivating and reminding me to pick up that brush, pick up that pencil, and get back to what I love doing, right? And the recording of my process, the showing up on YouTube and my podcast and my Substack, those come from the overflow of me showing up for my craft. When I'm painting, I typically get an idea of what I want to say about my creative flow or this painting, or what it does for me, how it affects my mental health, how it impacts the quality of my life, even when everything else is falling apart. Art is the glue that truly has been holding me together, right? Or when I'm out on a walk admiring nature, I might want to take a picture, which is content for me. It's selfish. I don't have to share it with anyone. And then I might be inspired to paint it later and then share that video, right? Or I might write a Substack about how we are all collectively feeling frustration with the quote unquote content monster that's always hungry and always wants more from us. And we can collectively agree to take our power back rather than feeling like victims of this machine that just keeps taking from us. And it is, I mean, we have to live in this sort of duality of those two things where we are in charge of our own life and our own behavior and our own discipline. And we are also frustrated with the way things are, right? So how do we go about this? Well, one thing is to shift our focus from me to us. According to the universal law of oneness, what's done to one is done to all. So that's why gossip is not a great thing, right? Because when we're talking bad about someone else, we might be talking about a shadow part of ourselves that we're suppressing. And so we want to show up knowing that when we serve our community and fellow artists or people who are following our journey or a few steps behind us, we're actually showing up for ourselves. Because when the world is a slightly better place, our life becomes a better place, right? And so I'm so grateful that Marie shared that episode about content and reminded me that yes, I can be cranky at the algorithm, but I can't control it. There's not much I can do about the way things are. And instead of being bummed out that my podcast doesn't have 20,000 bajillion downloads, I can also just say that I know for sure that there was an artist who needed to hear an interview or a little motivational episode I did. And sometimes they reach out and let me know. And I have to keep that at the forefront of my mind that there is someone out there who needs to see what I'm making or hear what I'm saying. And so when we come from a place of service, we stop feeling sorry for ourselves. And listen, I'm not shaming anyone. I have plenty of days where I have a full-blown pity party for myself. I usually limit it to 15 minutes these days as I grow more mature. But the point is that I have days where I am so frustrated. I feel like no one's seeing what I'm posting. No one's caring about my paintings. Maybe my paintings didn't sell and I was really hoping for that sale. It happens, right? But when I forget about all the disappointments, forget about what didn't work and think, okay, there's someone who's going to be in love with this painting. There's someone who might be inspired to pick up a brush or start writing again, right? There's someone who needs to hear that they shouldn't give up on their art career. And I want them to win because I want a world full of creators. I want to open my Instagram and Substack, and instead of seeing these half-naked AI models or whatever is going on or fake politicians or, other slop, I want to see people creating. I want to see people writing, reading poetry, playing music, sculpting, making collages, being messy, being human, connecting with each other and being present and enjoying their life, right? I don't want to see junk that's basically stolen from other people. So in a way, even though I just talked about being of service, in a way, I also believe that we get to be a little bit selfish, right? When we show up and fill the internet with our work, we're pushing out all that junk. And isn't that the best news ever? Like, what a freaking great way to rebel against the machine or the man or whoever is in charge of all this crap. And so, yes, I'm being part of the game. I am showing up here, and in fact, I'm committed to releasing a new YouTube video each week in 2026. And you can stand by this promise. You'll see a lot more of me for this reason. I want to be the voice of encouragement because I know how badly I need to hear this voice. So being of service is also selfish, and that's okay. You get to show up for yourself, you get to show up for others, and we get to be in this together. So here's how I'm planning on taking my power back in 2026. And mind you, I also want to share that this is coming from a place of me as an artist who is also putting out my work and hoping to get new eyes, new collectors on my art, and as someone who curates other people's work through exhibitions, magazines, and other opportunities that I get to host, right? So how do we stop feeding the quote unquote monster and feel in charge, feel like we have autonomy over what we're doing, right? Well, one, let's not chase trends because that is a losing game. The algorithm is going to change. People don't see all our stuff. And yes, I think it's okay to play around with viral music or viral silly trends. Like there is one that was happening in December or November, and it was about, was it in your 20s, your best friend will ask you to take your first spinning class, and it's very important that you say yes. You've probably seen that one. Or I know happiness can't be found in art supplies, but I'm going to give it a try anyway, right? It doesn't hurt to try. So there's really fun trends that of course are applicable to us, and that's not what I'm talking about. You're absolutely welcome to play with viral trends. I think it can be fun and being creative in that way, right? Sometimes when you have those limitations, it can actually bring a lot of creativity to your business and the way that you show up online. But the other thing that I'm talking about is more so not worrying so much about fitting a trend, because you get to also set your own trends in your own community, right? Like being a little bit less polished is something I'm going to work on. Showing up more real and more often, more authentically, rather than waiting for a whole setup. Like I definitely struggle a little bit with perfectionism when it comes to showing up online. And even though I want to deliver quality videos and content for you guys, I know that sometimes I just have to show up just to build that trust. So the purpose of showing up, we have to just do a gut check. Are we showing up because we feel like we have to? That's when the burnout happens, because then you're like, well, I have to do this, or it's a fear-based tactic, right? People are going to leave me. The abandonment mood comes out. People are going to unfollow me if I don't show up. No. If your friend is having a bad day and they don't go out with you, they're still your friend, right? So the people who care about you and believe in you and your work, they're still going to be there. Consistency and showing up online, or however you're showing up, isn't about being consistent for consistency's sake. It's to build trust, both in yourself and treat yourself with professionalism and commitment, right? And to show your audience that you're serious as well, whether it's a collector, a fellow artist that you're motivating as well by proxy, or whoever your audience is. And so when I'm talking about consistency, one of the biggest lessons in consistency is my podcast. And so Create Podcast has reached, formerly Art and Cocktails, has reached over 1 million downloads, but I didn't really have a moment where something really big happened, aside from when I had Jerry Saltz on a show. When I had Jerry Saltz on a show, one episode was like 20,000 downloads, but overall, it was just usually between 10 and 20,000 downloads a month over the past 7 years, and that resulted in 1 million downloads, right? So consistency trumps these big viral moments. 2, honor your mental health. One of the best ways to do that is when you feel good, like I feel good today. So I'm actually going to record a few things. I'm going to record some videos. I'm going to record little reels, and I'm going to use them and spread them out. So that takes a little bit of discipline. Sometimes we want to share everything at once. Batching your content on the days that you feel good can be a great way to protect your mental health, right? And also give yourself more space during the week to work on your art, to work on your business, whatever it is that you do. And the other thing that happens is when we batch content is that we are forced to get organized. So rather than me scrambling last minute, I had to sit down this week and think about some topics that are on top of mind in the creative community, right? So going back to number 1, coming at it from a place of building trust and discipline within yourself and to your people that you care about rather than fear and pressure. 2, using energy. And I don't know about you guys, but when I am, for example, recording, my brain is now on a wavelength of recording. So I'm going to be really motivated to keep recording for a while. And that's a good thing. When you're in a studio and you get in that flow state, you want to keep painting or collaging or whatever. It's very similar when it comes to writing captions or taking pictures or, creating videos, whatever that is for you. You don't have to make videos, but choose one area that you really want to stay consistent in this year, whether it's your Substack, which I love. It's one of my favorite platforms, your podcast, your Instagram, TikTok, whatever that is for you. You don't have to do it all. Choose something that you know you're going to show up and build trust on. And number 3 is, of course, coming at it from a place of love and really lifting others up. And by lifting others up, like once again, we don't have to be preachers, we don't have to be coaches or healers, but I happen to be a mentor. But I think sometimes it's just showing up and not being greedy with her gifts. Like, imagine if you never saw some of your favorite artists' art, or if you never heard some of your favorite musicians' music. You would be so disappointed if they were stingy. And it's also a balance of showing up with love and with care and with thoughtfulness rather than just feeding that content monster. Just showing up for the sake of showing up is fine. If it works for you, that's okay. But I'm just choosing to not do that anymore because I want to just commit to once a week, I do a video. Once a week, I do a podcast, right? That's a really manageable goal for me. For you, it might be less than that. It might be once a month. Pick something that you know you can serve with, right? And one other thing that I want to talk about is by us showing up once again, We're rebelling against the machine. We're filling it with art, with authenticity, with real human thoughts and real human creations. And the other thing that we're also going to be doing is we're going to be kind of like changing the way that the art market, if you're an artist, is operating. So I know for me, when I first started, there were so many smoke and mirrors and so much opaqueness. No one talked about how anything is made and everything's really mysterious. And even now, when I look up some of my favorite artists who are represented by blue chip galleries like Alma Rec or Hauser and Wirth, there's not a lot of information about how they support themselves, even how much their work costs, or not that you have to disclose those details, but it would be really beautiful if more of us shared our process or talked about, behind the scenes of our work without people having to fly out to New York or LA to hear us talking, right? So not everyone has to be an open book by any means, but think about in the ways that you would like to see changes in your creative community and how you can be a small part of it. I hope this was uplifting, and I hope it gives you a little nugget of motivation and support as we go into this new year. And of course, as much as I would love to tell you, you don't need to show up online. You don't need to post anything. I know that it makes a big difference. That's how I find most of my collectors and curators and even friends. So of course, I don't want to completely stop doing that, even though I definitely have days where I want to blow up my laptop and throw my phone into a fire. I'm so grateful that I didn't give up and I didn't delete my accounts. But there definitely comes a time where we have to be honest with ourselves and really tap into our motivation. Why are we showing up? How do we want to serve our communities? And what is a wise and sustainable way for us to do so without harming ourselves or our mental health? I'm so excited that you're here, and I'm looking forward to sharing more videos and thoughts and hopefully uplift you on your journey. If you like what we do, please check out createmagazine.co. We have open calls for artists. We also have createyou.co, where we have mini digestible courses on how to sell your art, how to grow your business, and so much more coming in 2026. And of course, if you have any suggestions for future content or feedback, please email me at info@createmagazine.com, and I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to do this together.